G'day YouTubers, Wazza here. Alright, today we're going to be looking at the 2016 MT10, and we're going to do a dyno and a ECU flash. So there's a little bit of information on American websites. They seem to some people like it, some people find that it's a bit of a struggle, some people have lost their cruise control. Today I want to get Fred from ProCycle Dynos Performance to tune this bike, flash it, tune it, and make it run that bit better. With my previous Harleys, my Fat Bob, he did the dyno, flash drive and all that stuff. Very good at what he does. What have we got? Yamaha, the Yamaha dealership felt that Fred from ProCycles and his team are very reputable, have a good reputation. So it doesn't really matter specifically about Fred. What matters is that anywhere in Australia, there's only been a few of these done, and anywhere on the forums and websites, you don't get as much information as you'd like. So I'd like to look at that, see if we can get as much as we can in the information category and work it out from there. So he's just pulled the bike with a dyno and he's just going to run that bike perhaps shortly. What else can we say? I think Fred will talk about the rest of it and we'll just go through it with him. Alright, thank you. Alright, here we are, we've got the bike in. Fred's working on it now. So as we said, we're going to flash, tune and dyno it. What would be the benefit of that, Fred?
So basically what we're going to do now is we're going to see and test where you're at.
Yes.
So I'm currently pulling your stock O2 sensor out because they are actually positioned in front of the catalytic converter.
Okay.
We want to get a nice accurate reading in front of that catalytic converter before it gets changed or mixed up. And then we can interpret where the bike's at, where your tuning issues are. We can run it up on the dyno, so I'll show you air fuel lines, we'll give it the power test, we'll run it through the cruise in the low end area where you spend a lot of time riding the bike, and we'll see where the issues actually are. Okay. So at least that gives us a point what sort of gains we're going to see.
So this is a base run now, and then we assess it from there.
We'll base run it from there, and then we'll base run it so I've got a good before run for you, and then we're going to rewrite the ECU and de-restrict it to start with. So we're going to change some of the settings on it. We're going to disable O2 sensors. We're going to turn off speed limiters.
Oh, can we reduce the fan down?
Yep, we'll drop
to about 195, you think?
Yeah, 100 at the moment. Standard's about 103, 105.
Yeah, I thought it was 105, 100.
We'll drop it down to 95, 100, somewhere like that.
Somewhere like that.
It keeps it a bit. We are in Queensland, so you're going to get a bit of heat up here.
Yep, fair enough.
So we'll drop those down and de-restrict a bit of that for you. So that will give us a good start line point.
Yep.
Of where we're going to go.
Okay, so ECU flash, the benefits of that over other ways, you think, Fred?
There's a few different ways you can go with it. Power commanders are a great product and they work really well. Our problem with things like this is because of the new emission control specs now, O2 sensors are very hard to get rid of. A lot of systems now use what's called an O2 optimizer. So what that does is that plugs in between your stock O2 sensor and your harness and allows us to rewrite that signal and add some fuel and make the thing a bit snappier, a bit smoother in the areas where it isn't that emission controlled area. What we've been doing a lot of lately is we'll flash an ECU and disable those O2 sensors. If the bike has a power commander, we'll then use that to tune it and we can do all the low end stuff. With system we're going to use today is made by Woolwich Racing, which is an Australian company. The software is second to none. It's excellent to work with. That will allow me to disable this and de-restrict everything on the bike, and then we'll run through, I'll show you a fuel map and show you that software works shortly, but we'll run through each throttle position with loaded runs and then we'll manually go in and rewrite all those numbers to fix that. The benefits of doing it with this Woolwich software with the ECU is directly we reflash one source. So the signal is just being told what to do straight away. It's not being reinterpreted by any second device or any piggyback type system.
Yep.
So this will just be rewriting the initial brain of the bike.
Yep, then standard mode works the same way.
Yep.
A and B.
All your throttle control modes, I can make one mode more, your aggressive mode now, I'll actually make that a little bit more aggressive.
Yep.
But your other two modes I'll leave alone, so you can still ride around in a standard mode. The benefit with doing that, all those modes will still work the same way when I flash it, but because we're going to re-roll the fueling in all those throttle areas, those modes will still work the same way because they'll allow you to still restrict it. If you still pull the throttle on the same amount, you still won't see that sort of throttle position.
And you get that bottom end to about 4 grams, a little flat on these things.
Yep.
That'll pick up a little bit.
That's right. Well, purely that's controlled by these things. So we're gonna take these out. We're gonna turn these off,
Yep.
and that will change the way that closed loop system works. So we're effectively setting the bike in an open loop map right through the whole zone.
Okay.
So that will be just controlled purely by what we tell it to do, not by a second thing.
And the last thing you said to me was, if you leave these things on, they become a little bit more snatchy when you.
With the catalytic converter, yes, they do.
Yep.
We've done quite a few of these now. They're an awesome motorbike.
Yep.
We found that with the full acro system and the link pipe,
Yep.
they make insane horsepower. They become a little bit nicer on the throttle. The on-off throttle, I find, with the catalytic converter and stuff gone, it seems to be a lot better.
Yep.
Obviously, the catalytic converter does create a bit of a restriction on these things. We see anywhere of 6 or 7 horsepower, which isn't huge by getting rid of the catalytic converter, but just does make them smoother on-off throttle. I've had
Okay.
customers sort of tell me the same thing, where we're finding with the catalytic converter still, it does create a little bit more back pressure, obviously. Because all these bikes now are fly-by-wire throttle controlled, it always is going to have that ability when you pull the throttle on, a second device actually opens the blade. I mean, it's instant, but there's still, you have that on-off feel with it, and they just do that. The benefit is that they give you a lot more control over the whole tuning because we can control where the throttle is, even with what you do with the grip.
Okay. So it's something I can look at later, and it wouldn't cost a lot to rectify that. Do I need to dyno tune it again if I looked at that?
You would, because that, as soon as you get rid of that catalytic converter out, that will fully change the fuel map everywhere.
Okay.
So you start from scratch.
But I've got a quieter.
Yeah, you got a quieter. It's less attractive to the police because it's not so noisy. You can have more fun on it. They're not going to hear you coming just a little bit more.
That's sort of like the way I've been going.
Yeah. And a lot of guys like that, you know. Some guys like you want to have a bit of safety factor too with it. So
Well, the fat
cars
bob,
need to hear you.
yeah, and
Yeah.
the fat bob that you did previously, that had wonderful pipes on it.
Yep.
And I really enjoyed that. But this time around, we're going a little quieter.
Yeah, your neighbours will be thanking me for it.
Yeah, they are. The horses aren't jumping anymore.
No, good work. Good work.
All right, we'll let you go.
Thanks, mate.
Keep going, and then we'll redo it again.
We'll get it organised.
So we've just done our base run, and there's our figures up on the board there. Can you see that?
Base run. She's done 153 horsepower and 82 foot-pound of torque, which is pretty strong.
Pretty strong.
So you can see there, I've got along the screen is a reference line of air fuel. That's
Yep.
basically a bit of a guideline of what we're looking to the bike to be at. And you can see it's not real bad, like from sort of 8,000 RPM onwards, it's going a little bit rich, but it's pretty safe through there. It's got this big lean out here where it's going almost 15 to 1, right at that point where it almost dips along the graph. And that would be where the secondary throttles, where the throttle butterflies start to open in that area. It just gets a bit of a lean out through there. So we should be able to clean a lot of that up and fix the fueling.
Yep.
That, bear in mind, we're looking at one throttle position, so that's just full throttle. So when we do a tune, you can see here I've got the Woolwich software open.
Yep.
And we'll move that a bit better so you can see it. So when we go into our fuel map section, we're going to be looking at throttle position. So for our throttle position, we're going to run the bike at each one of these lines of throttle. So if you can see that there, when we click over to the side that shows that column is 100% throttle. So when you do a dyno run on a bike, when you do a power test, all you're tuning, all you're looking at is that line of throttle. You can see how many lines of throttle there we've actually got to go through and tune.
That's
this
a lot.
gives us the ability, to go right down to 2.4% throttle. So where you find...
So the far right is, and that line going down is the throttle.
That's
full
correct.
on.
So throttle position across the top,
Yep.
RPM down the side. We can change every single one of these cells, so you can see how much scope we've got for mapping and adjustment.
That's in depth, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot in it to get through, so it does take us quite a bit of time to write a custom map for it, because we've, like I said, we've got to run through every one of those throttle positions. We log air fuel like this over RPM, so then I can mathematically work out what percentage of fuel I've got to add or take away to each one of these cells to make that air fuel ratio at an optimum. And that's what custom mapping a bike is. If you had a carburetor bike, for instance, you've got, most carburetors, you've got 4 forms of adjustment. This if you count all those boxes, that's how many forms of adjustment we've got with fuel injection. It gives you the scope to do a lot of amazing things.
Okay, so yeah, I've seen these graphs and wondered what the fuck it was.
Yeah,
sorry,
so
what is it? Excuse me.
Yeah, a lot of guys are like, till you say to map something. That's why we always recommend, like, we won't do a downloaded map for anyone, because you don't know what it's doing without putting it on a dyno and visually seeing these air fuel lines running through each one of these throttle positions. You don't know what your bike's doing. You don't know what the map you've put into your bike is doing. That's why we only do custom tuning. Yeah.
Very good.
So we're gonna basically bench flash this ECU now. We're gonna flash a pre-map that I've already created with another bike of similar specs, just to give me a starting point.
Yep.
And then we're going to do those logged runs at each one of those throttle positions. So we'll de-restrict this ECU and set up and get it ready to go. Then we'll start doing all those runs.
All right, very good. Thank you, Fred. I'll just make that a little bigger. Okay, so what were you saying there?
So the other thing I didn't mention to you, this is a new system out, and everybody loves this feature with the Woolwich software. So you now have what's called race tools, and anything that has, like we talked about before, with a fly-by-wire controlled throttle, so electronically controlled throttle.
Yes.
This is race tools. So you have quick shifter, you have auto blip, which is only on the fly-by-wire controlled bike. So what that auto blip means, you can buy this race tools package, which has a different quick shifter setup that goes on your gear lever. So when you step on your gear lever and shift down a gear, it will automatically give the engine a rev, auto blip it, and kick you back a gear without having to touch clutch or throttle.
So that's with this bike here. I can do that with this tune.
You can do that. We can do that with, we can enable auto blipper, we can enable quick shifter. We've also got launch control, which enables you to have an RPM where we could set it a desired RPM. So you pull the clutch in, hold the throttle flat, and just let go of the lever, and it will automatically control how the bike takes off.
Wow.
Obviously you treat it gingerly when you start, because we don't want to flip you over. So we have a lot of settings that we can adjust to make all that work.
With this upgrade to the engine, how is the traction control when it comes to wheelies go?
Yeah, all that isn't a different part of it, so none of that system we're changing at all. Yeah,
okay.
We won't adjust or touch any of that side of things.
Okay.
The Yamaha's pretty good with the way they do stuff.
All right, so we're not going to go mad and flip out.
No, we're not going to hurt you, I
Sweet.
promise.
All right, we'll move to the next thing. This has been very in-depth. I'm very happy, and I appreciate the time you're spending with me.
Yeah, no problem at all, huh?
Thank you.